Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Ember, thanks for joining me today. So today's video might be the downfall of everything. But honestly, this is the video where we're gonna see if my brilliant idea actually works or if it completely falls apart. And I'm talking about the fact that I've decided this year to make a video for every single book that I read, and that includes sequels. So I'm going to be talking about The Fall by Guillermo Del Toro and Chuck Hogan, which is the sequel to The Strain. And if you want to watch the video on that book, I will leave it linked below. The tricky part of talking about a sequel is the fact that kind of inherent in talking about a second or a third or whatever is that you kind of give spoilers or things away about the first book. So I'm just going to kind of give an overview about these books, and then that way anybody who's new, who hasn't read these books or read the first one anyway, can get a little bit of an idea about them, and then you guys can either fast forward to the end of this video or feel free to just pause it, stop it, whatever, and then go and watch the video about book number one, so you can decide if you want to read these books. If you have read the first book, please watch this video all the way to the end. These books are vampire series, and The Strain starts with a giant airplane landing in New York City, and pretty soon they figure out that something is not right. There are vampires in the world, and they are actually a infectious disease. Ephraim Goodweather from the CDC kind of heads up the early investigation. He also meets Abraham, and I learned how to say his name, Satrakian, who is a professor, and he also was a survivor of one of the death camps in World War II, and he has been studying about vampires and trying to track them down his entire life. So these books, as I mentioned in my original review of The Strain, are very adult content books. They are kind of creepy, they are kind of graphic, but also just really intense. So I do not recommend them for anyone teenage years or younger. However, I mean, that's up to you guys. You do what you want to do. That's just my personal recommendation. All right, so I'm going to start talking a little bit more specifically about The Fall. So if you have not read The Strain, now is the time, okay? Or continue watching at your own risk. But I am going to warn you that you will probably get spoiled for the first book. Okay, so after The Strain. Now, the first book, this made perfect sense for me because it was book number one. There was kind of a slow ramp up, in my opinion, where there was a lot of kind of players and pieces being put onto the board, right? As far as in your mind and in the story. So it made sense that there was kind of this slow build, but then you kind of get 150-ish pages in and things start happening more quickly. You're kind of building up to that climax and the big at the top of the ride, if you will. And then at the end, oh my gosh, there was so much going on, right? Abraham and Ephraim and Nora, they kind of went and confronted the master, and you see Gus, who has been kidnapped. And then at the very end of the book, oh my gosh, like Abraham's ex-wife Kelly shows up, and of course she was turned as a vampire. And the challenge of Zach seeing his mom that way and all of the turmoil, okay? So that's where we left book one. Now in book two, let me know if this was you, because I actually really kind of struggled with book two. I was expecting a lot more of a fast-paced read, but I didn't feel that at all. I felt like it was there was still a lot that they were kind of pieces they were putting together, but I definitely felt like it was just slow going, okay? Really, honestly, let me know if I'm the only one. There were some important things that happened. I just started reading book number 3, which is called The Eternal Night. And so far, it's actually been pretty good pacing, so it's kind of redeeming itself, but I did struggle a little bit with this book. The things I loved about this book was you get to see a lot more of Abraham Satrakian's kind of past. You get to find out more about how he got to be who he was and where he was as far as an expert on all things vampire. And you also get some little glimpses of the master as well, and kind of about him, and you learn more about how he functions. At the very end of book number 1, like I said, Gus was kidnapped and he was captured by the ancients, and you get to find out a little bit more about that. I do have to say that reading this book, it felt a little bit like a placeholder just to get to book number 3, but I am excited to see where book number 3 goes, so I will absolutely do a review and video of that when I get done with it. So in summary, I would say The Fall just kind of didn't move as quickly as I had hoped, but there was still a lot of good information, a lot of things that show you that there's a bigger depth even than what you learned in book 1, and you're starting to get all these more kind of important details about the world, about how these vampires work and their infection. So I'm absolutely excited to get book number 3 read and see how this story ends out. Alright, well that is everything that I have for you guys today for The Fall by Guillermo Del Toro and Chuck Hogan, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks a lot. Bye!